His name was Walter, 73 years old, retired high school coach from Columbus, Ohio, 4 kids, 7 grandchildren. A man who had never smoked a day in his life, walked 3 miles every morning, and still had the same handshake that made younger men straighten their posture. His wife heard him get up at 6:14 in the morning. She heard his footsteps in the hallway. She started his coffee. She waited. He never came out. His doctor had seen him 6 weeks earlier. Blood pressure, acceptable. Cholesterol, managed. EKG, clean. He had walked out of that office feeling reassured, feeling fine. He was not unlucky. He was not unhealthy. What killed Walter was something he had done every single morning for 73 years. Something so ordinary, so completely beneath suspicion, that in 7 decades of doctor visits, physicals, checkups, and conversations, not one person had ever mentioned it. Not once. Not ever. I am going to tell you exactly what it was, and if you are over 60, or you love someone who is, I need you to stay through every word of this. Because what I reveal in the middle of this video is the part your doctor has almost certainly never told you, and it is the part that changes everything about tomorrow morning. Before I tell you what Walter was doing, I need to give you one piece of information, because without it, nothing else I say will land the way it needs to. Your body does not wake up gently. It detonates. Starting around 4 a.m., before your alarm, before your eyes open, before you have any conscious awareness, your adrenal glands flood your system with cortisol. Blood pressure starts climbing toward its highest point of the entire day. Your heart rate rises. The proteins in your blood that form clots become more concentrated, more activated, more ready. Your body is not easing you into the day. It is launching you into it. Every system primed for maximum output. By the time most adults over 60 are standing up and walking to the bathroom, their blood pressure is at or near its daily peak. Their blood is at its thickest after 7 or 8 hours without water. Their clotting system is fully armed and waiting. This is the window your heart enters every single morning. And after the age of 60, 3 changes inside your body make that window significantly more dangerous than it was a decade ago. First, your arterial walls. The elastic fibers inside your arteries have been slowly replaced by collagen over decades. Your arteries no longer stretch and spring back with each heartbeat the way they once did. Instead of absorbing pressure spikes, they transmit them, in full force, to everything downstream, including any plaque that has been silently accumulating for years. Second, your pressure sensors. Embedded in your blood vessel walls are sensors called baroreceptors. Their job is to detect sudden pressure changes and signal your body to compensate. After 60, they respond slower. The correction arrives late. The cardiovascular system has lost the real-time agility it had at 40. Third, your autonomic speed. The overall speed at which your heart and vessels make split-second adjustments has declined. What a younger body smoothed out in 2 seconds now takes 5, or doesn't get smoothed out at all. None of these 3 changes kills you on their own. What kills you is what most adults over 60 add into this window every single morning, without knowing it has a name, without knowing what it does, and without knowing that it is becoming more dangerous every year they age. It is called the Valsalva maneuver. Most people have never heard those words, but most people over 60 are performing one every single morning of their lives. Here is what it is. When you close your airway, hold your breath, and bear down during straining on the toilet, that is a Valsalva maneuver. It is not a choice. It is not a habit you consciously formed. It is an involuntary reflex, automatic, instinctive, and inside your body, it is anything but harmless. Phase 1, the compression. The moment you hold your breath and strain, pressure inside your chest surges. That pressure collapses the large veins carrying blood back to your heart. Blood return drops. Your heart, sensing the drop, responds immediately. Heart rate accelerates, blood pressure spikes. And because the heart is now demanding more blood while simultaneously receiving less, the coronary arteries, the vessels that feed the heart muscle itself, experience a reduction in flow at the exact moment demand is highest. Phase 2, the rebound. The moment straining stops and you take your first breath, all that backed up blood slams back into the heart in a sudden wave. Cardiac output surges. Blood pressure whips sharply in the opposite direction, in a young, elastic artery. That pressure swing is absorbed. The wall flexes. The sensors compensate. The system stabilizes. In a stiffened artery, that pressure wave is not absorbed. It is transmitted, full force, directly into the wall, directly into any plaque sitting inside it. And this is where it becomes life or death. Most arterial plaque, when stable, causes no immediate problem. But some plaque caps are structurally fragile. Under the right conditions, a sudden pressure surge, a mechanical stress wave traveling through a rigid arterial wall, the cap cracks. The body responds instantly. Clotting factors flood the rupture site. A clot forms fast. If it forms in a coronary artery, blood flow to the heart muscle stops. That is a heart attack, not from the plaque, from the clot that forms when the plaque cracks open, and the conditions that trigger that crack, elevated pressure, mechanical stress, a primed clotting system, all converge in the same narrow window. The early morning, the cortisol surge, the first place most adults over 60 walk when they wake up. I want you to sit with that for a moment. The most dangerous room in your house, for your heart, is not where you think it is. But the Valsalva event is only the center of this. What makes it lethal is what surrounds it. 3 compounding factors that almost no one is aware of, all operating at exactly the same time. Factor 1, morning blood viscosity. After 7 or 8 hours without fluid, your blood is thicker than it was when you went to sleep. The plasma volume is reduced. The clotting proteins are more concentrated. The blood moves more slowly through vessels that are already less flexible, and it is far more ready to form a dangerous clot the moment a pressure wave cracks a plaque cap. This is not dramatic dehydration. This is what happens to every person's blood every single night. The difference is that in a younger body, it does not matter much. In a cardiovascular system carrying 60 or 70 years of structural change, it matters enormously. Factor 2, arterial stiffness. The same Valsalva maneuver that a 45-year-old's artery absorbs without incident is transmitted in full force through a 70-year-old's arterial wall. The stiffening is not disease. It is not failure. It is a normal structural change that happens in virtually every aging adult. But normal does not mean safe. And the consequence of that change is that every morning pressure event lands harder than it did 20 years ago. Factor 3, the medication timing gap. Most blood pressure medication is prescribed for morning. If you take it at night, it may be at its lowest concentration exactly when the cortisol surge is pushing your pressure to its daily peak. If you take it in the morning, it has not yet been absorbed when you walk to the bathroom 20 minutes after waking. Either way, in the window that matters most, you may be least protected. I am not asking you to change your medication on your own. I am asking you to have one specific conversation with your doctor. We will come back to exactly what that conversation looks like. Now, put all of it together. A Valsalva event, occurring in blood thickened by overnight dehydration, transmitted through arterial walls that no longer flex, landing on plaque that has been accumulating for decades. At the moment, blood pressure is already at its daily cortisol-driven maximum, in a clotting system that is fully activated and waiting. That is not one risk. That is 5 conditions converging in one window, in one room, in the first 20 minutes of the day. And almost no one knows it is happening. Warning signs. Your body has been trying to tell you. The problem is that the signals it sends during early morning cardiovascular stress are almost universally dismissed as aging, as stress, as too much coffee. They are not. Warning sign 1, morning headache before you rise. Not a tension headache that builds as the day starts. A headache that is already there when you open your eyes, across the back of the skull, or at the temples. Before coffee, before standing, before anything. That is a recognized clinical indicator of elevated overnight blood pressure. Sustained nocturnal pressure creating vascular stress on the cerebral circulation, manifesting as the headache you wake into. If this is happening more than 2 or 3 mornings a week, do not attribute it to a bad pillow. Ask your physician specifically about ambulatory blood pressure monitoring. A 24-hour recording. What it captures overnight may be very different from what was measured at your last office visit. Warning sign 2, visual dimming or facial flushing during straining. During the peak of the Valsalva compression phase, the body temporarily reduces blood flow to circuits it considers non-essential, including the small vessels supplying peripheral vision and the face. The brief darkening at the edges of your vision, the sudden flush of heat across your face. Many people have experienced this for years and laughed it off as nothing. Warning sign 3. Heart flutter or racing in the minutes after the bathroom. The rebound phase of the Valsalva. When straining stops and the backed-up venous blood returns to the heart in a wave, cardiac output surges. In a vulnerable system, this produces a brief arrhythmic moment, a skipped beat, a racing sensation, a flutter that feels like the heart briefly lost its footing. If this is happening regularly after your morning bathroom visit, it is not anxiety. It is not caffeine. It is a mechanism, and it is telling you something specific. Start a log. Write down the time. Write down what you felt. Write down whether it followed the bathroom. That log, your own documented observations, is among the most useful diagnostic information you can bring to a cardiologist. Warning sign 4. Morning fatigue that coffee cannot touch. You slept 7 hours. You feel like you slept 3. A heaviness that does not lift in the first 30 minutes of the day. A fog that never quite clears before 9 a.m. Your heart worked harder than it should have in the first 20 minutes of the day. What you are feeling is the quiet recovery from that. A cardiovascular system spending the first hour of your morning pulling itself back from unnecessary strain. Most people call it aging and move on. In many cases, it is not aging at all. What I am about to give you costs nothing, requires no prescription, no equipment, no supplements. 5 adjustments. Starting tonight, each one targeting the same objective. Remove the conditions that make the Valsalva maneuver dangerous. Step 1. Water before anything. Before coffee. Before standing. Before the bathroom. Drink a full glass of water. This begins reversing the overnight blood thickening within 20 to 30 minutes. The difference in viscosity between a hydrated and a dehydrated morning blood sample is measurable, and it changes quickly. When the Valsalva event occurs in properly hydrated blood, the environment it lands in is fundamentally different. Less concentrated, less clot-ready, less dangerous. 1 glass. Before anything else. That is step 1. Step 2. Sit before you stand. When you first wake, sit at the edge of the bed for 30 seconds before your feet touch the floor. The transition from horizontal to upright is itself a cardiovascular event. Blood pools in the legs. Your heart must compensate immediately. After 60, with slower baroreceptors and reduced autonomic agility, that shift arrives on top of a cortisol-driven pressure peak. 30 seconds at the edge of the bed gives your system time to begin adjusting before you take your first step. 30 seconds. That is step 2. Step 3. Do not force it. If elimination is not happening within 60 to 90 seconds, leave. Come back in 15 minutes. Your body has a natural reflex, the gastrocolic reflex, that activates 20 to 30 minutes after waking, particularly after warm fluid. That reflex does not require effort to produce a result. What requires effort is overriding constipation, and constipation is a dietary and hydration problem, not a problem to be solved with force in the highest cardiovascular risk window of the entire day. Every additional second of sustained straining extends the Valsalva duration and amplifies both the pressure spike and the rebound. The solution is never more effort. The solution is patience and adequate fiber and hydration throughout the day. Leave and come back. That is step 3. Step 4. Change the position. A small footstool, positioned to raise your knees above hip level, aligns the body in the orientation it was actually designed for elimination. This is not about comfort. It is physiology. Clinical research has documented that this position reduces straining time and effort, in some studies by more than half, without any other change to diet or routine. Less straining time, shorter Valsalva event, smaller pressure spike, smaller rebound. A footstool costs less than $15. It is available tonight. It is the single most underused cardiovascular intervention available to adults over 60. That is step 4. Step 5. One specific conversation with your doctor. Begin measuring your blood pressure at 2 moments, immediately before bed and immediately upon waking, before rising, before coffee. Keep a 2-week log. If your morning readings are consistently higher than your evening readings, Bring that log to your physician and ask specifically about ambulatory blood pressure monitoring and whether your current medication timing is protecting the early morning window. You are not asking for a change. You are asking your doctor to look at data that a standard office visit cannot capture. You have every right to that information. Your overnight cardiovascular profile is part of your health picture, and the fact that it is rarely measured does not mean it does not matter. That is step 5. 5 steps. No cost, no medication, no supplements. Just the removal of 5 conditions that should never have been allowed to converge in the first place. I want to come back to Walter. He was not unlucky. He was not reckless. He was not negligent. He was doing exactly what millions of adults over 60 do every morning. Exactly what his body had always done. Exactly what had felt safe for 7 decades, because for most of those 7 decades, it was safe. Nobody told him that the arteries he had at 73 were not the arteries he had at 45. That an action that had been physiologically unremarkable his entire life was becoming, year by year, morning by morning, more dangerous as those walls stiffened and his overnight blood thickened and his clotting system grew more eager to activate. He was not unlucky. He was uninformed. And now, you are not. Tomorrow morning before your feet hit the floor, drink a glass of water, sit at the edge of the bed for 30 seconds. And when you go to the bathroom, do not force it. 3 things. That is where it starts. There is no supplement company funding this information. There is no profit in a footstool and a glass of water, which is exactly why no one sat across from Walter and explained it before it was too late. You are having that conversation today. If this gave you something real, something you are going to use tomorrow morning, send it to one person over 60 who matters to you, a spouse, a sibling, a neighbor who lives alone. You may never know whose morning you just changed.